Good morning. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. My name is Marilyn Orr, President of the club, and we are thrilled to have you join us today. This meeting broadcast is available on HCTV, as well as our Rotary of Hudson YouTube channel and Facebook. Our club meets weekly using this digital platform, Zoom. When we meet in person, it's at Laurel Lake Retirement Community for breakfast. We hope to get back to that soon. We meet most Wednesday mornings from 7:15 to 8:30 a.m. So come out to join us for a meeting. We would love to have you as a guest. To learn more about Rotary, our club, and the impact we are having on our local community and the world, please visit our website, rotaryhudson.org. So enjoy this meeting today and help us share the message that Rotary opens doors of opportunity.
Rotarians and guests, welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. I'm Ron Strobel, Sergeant at Arms. Our invocation this morning is by Jim Young.
Good morning, Rotarians and guests. Let us pray. For your blessing of friends, food, and the fellowship of Rotary, we give you thanks today. As we ask for your blessing, let us always be mindful of the amazing gifts that life has given each of us. Let these thoughts guide our lives today. We ask this blessing for the meeting. In your name we pray, amen.
Thank you, Jim. And now to lead us in the pledge and the four-way test, Ben Rexroad.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the four-way test. Are we going to have that?
Yeah, just a second.
The things we think, say, or do. First, is it truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will build goodwill and better friendships? And four, will be beneficial to all concerned.
Thank you, Ben. As you might notice, we're getting close to the end of the alphabet, and we're doing this alphabetically. So one of these months, the A's are going to come around again. So be prepared. And to lead our group today, we have President-elect Father Joe Boisel.
Thank you. Good morning, Rotarians, friends, guests. Patrick begins with a quote, I guess, so we'll follow suit in that. And here's the quote: "Reason is the path to faith, and faith takes over when reason can say no more." That's Thomas Merton, a monk from the 20th century, an American monk. In way of announcements, Bill Libby is looking for some beekeeping equipment. If anybody has beekeeping equipment, he's the man to see down here. Yes. All right, Bill, looking for those bees. All right. We also have a board of directors meeting scheduled next week following the morning meeting. So if you're part of that board of directors, plan to stay for that meeting. We have several guests with us today. Would you, if you're a guest among us, just stand and introduce yourself? We do that?
So again, they cannot be heard at all.
Okay. Well, we're gonna go with it anyway here. Mark over here.
Yep.
Oh, we have mics.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brian Shields. I am a guest today and of my friend Paul Quay.
Good morning, Rotary. I am Paul Quay, past president of the Rotary Club of Cleveland, past assistant governor of some area cluster, and on the finance committee for the next 3 years. Thanks for having me.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Christine Ferranda, and I'm a member of the Stowe Monroe Falls Rotary Club, and I'm just here as a guest of Chris.
All right, well, welcome to all of our guests. Yes. And now Marilyn has a couple of announcements regarding gala and other things, I believe.
Thank you. Very quickly, there is a gala. The gala is now 40 days and counting. And so we're getting up against the wire, and the gala committee meeting will begin meeting weekly. Our first is today, immediately following this meeting. Also, I wanted to remind everyone that the letters in your solicitation packets that were sent to the businesses we're contacting indicate that we preferred having any donations submitted by the 15th of August. So that's coming up quickly. So I urge you to contact the people that you've been assigned to and to bring those things either to a meeting or to contact me directly via either email or by phone, and we'll arrange for a transfer so that we can get those items loaded onto Gesture, which is our online platform for bidding for the event. So it's coming up quickly at Camp Manitowoc, and it's going to be really a fun night. We've got some very interesting and unusual things for our live auction coming up. Included in that evening is a gourmet multi-course dinner served in your home, prepared in your home by Michael Ferris, who is the executive chef at the Blue Door Cafe and Bakery in Cuyahoga Falls. Now, this cafe is highly, highly ranked for the quality of its and unusualness of its preparations, and has often been noted as being the best brunch place in all of Ohio. So that's a very exciting one. We also have an overnight stay at the Spread Eagle Tavern in Hanoverton. Think of a beautiful fall day in the hills of the northern part of Appalachia in our state. That's what you're finding there. So it's an overnight stay put together with a $200 evening expense account. And so expect a very, very nice experience. We'll be talking about more things as they come forward, but that's just a little taste. The other thing I'd like to report is that the pollinator garden, we've been continuing to work with the Clock Tower Club. You can't just plant this thing and walk away. Over the summer, we've been dealing with pretty invasive weed species. The thistles have been a constant little issue, and they're gone. The ragweed now are coming to full force, and we're taking care of those. The other thing is that we've arranged a cooperative watering schedule between the Clock Tower Club and our club. So if you'd like to be more involved with the pollinator garden, please see me after the meeting or contact me independently, because we still have some work to be done. We're finding that some of the crabgrasses are coming in, and so we're moving into more of the weeding portion of this. At this point, I'd like to segue and talk about our wonderful speaker today. Alan Ladd is a local guy. He lives in Fairlawn, and he has a most wonderful success story. And in fact, the reason that I asked him to speak to us today is because of that success story. He previously worked in the insurance industry, but was a writer at heart. That was his passion. He's a graduate of Bowling Green University. I think he's from Pennsylvania. Is that right, Alan?
Very close, Wheeling, West Virginia, on the border.
Okay. Well, I don't recognize borders. You all know that. But anyway, Alan belonged to several writers groups in Akron and in Cleveland. And it was through that process that he was able to put together a first novel that went out for bid for publication. The result of that bidding process was that he had 6 different the publication houses bidding to represent him. That is so unusual. First, to have a novel accepted, but then to have that kind of activity. That first novel, The Long Flight Home, is a World War II historical novel. And I've read it, and it's very intriguing. And one of the major characters in that novel is a carrier pigeon. And so he brings forward interesting facts of World War II. That's his genre, that's his time period. But that book, that first book, ended up being published in 10 different languages. And he ended up with a book deal with Kensington Press for 4 separate books. The second book was published in late April. It is called Churchill's Secret Messenger. And I'll let him tell you more about the research that has done with that and everything going forward. It's a most interesting story. So fasten your seatbelts. We're in for a good talk today. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. And thank you, beautiful, lovely introduction. I really appreciate you inviting me to join the group. It's an honor to be here with the Rotary of Hudson. Can everybody hear me okay? Maybe just a little wave if you can hear me all right. Great. The older I get, the more I'm convinced that time is one of our most precious commodities. And I'm deeply grateful that you've chosen to spend your precious time with me this morning. And I'm honored to speak with you a little bit about my latest book, Churchill's Secret Messenger, but maybe I'll tell you a little bit about myself and my road to publication, my journey to publication. I could talk a little bit about Churchill's Secret Messenger and what inspired me to write the novel. I'll talk a little bit about my research. I love history and research. I'm sort of a history nerd, and I could tell you a little bit about what I learned during my research. And I'll leave plenty of time for questions. I'd love to keep this very interactive, and I'd love to hear what's on your mind about history and the topic that we're covering this morning. So plenty of time for questions and answers. First of all, a little bit about me. As Marilyn mentioned, I grew up near the Pittsburgh area, Wheeling, West Virginia, small town on the border of Pennsylvania. And I was very fortunate to have just wonderful parents that really fostered in me a passion for reading and writing at an early age. Some of my fondest memories as a child was my mom taking me to the library and just loading up stacks of books to take home and read, and bedtime stories. I remember Mom had an old typewriter, and even as a little kid, I used to pluck on it with 2 fingers and pretending to write, and it just sort of stayed with me. So I think my parents, they owned a small grocery store in Wheeling, West Virginia, and they had a really strong work ethic. And I worked at the store as soon as I was old enough to work. But they instilled in me a belief that you can accomplish anything through diligence and faith. So my parents, I have to thank enormously for me getting a chance to write for a living now. So my parents really fostered my passions. That's where it all started. But it didn't come quickly for me. Well, I always loved reading and writing. I studied business at Bowling Green State University. My dad having a grocery store, I was intrigued with business, and I really enjoyed the business world. During college, I took every opportunity to take as many creative writing and communication classes as I could. And that was sort of my, I take my accounting classes, my calculus, all of my things I needed for business, but I always took those other classes that sort of fed the creative side that I always aspired to. And near graduation, I was thinking like, gosh, I would really love to be a writer someday. It just was a dream of mine. But you're faced with getting a job and paying the rent and the bills. and I gladly accepted a job with a large property casualty insurance company. And I started my first job was with Kemper Insurance. It was a company out of Chicago. And not soon after, I joined a company, Westfield Insurance, which is not too far away from here. And I spent 20 years with the company, and very grateful for the opportunities I had. I was able to get lots of different leadership opportunities and rose to the level of a senior executive at the company. And but I always had that calling that I wanted to write. And I still remember traveling on a plane and in a hotel room, and I would always have a pad of paper or my laptop handy, and I would write short stories, with the dream of someday writing. And it just never left. And it kept, as I grew older, I always, wondered, what if I spent some time writing? And eventually I started my own executive search firm, where I placed executives in the insurance industry across the country with clients. And it gave me some flexibility to write. And so I decided I was going to get serious about writing. So I'd open up the coffee shop at 6 a.m. And I'd write until 9 o'clock and then go to work. And then I'd write in the evenings. And I joined a writers group in Akron, Ohio. It's called the Akron Writers Group, novel name. And I believe that was probably the biggest catalyst for helping me develop my craft for writing. The group is a critique group, and we share our writing. And boy, when you're sharing your writing with somebody, it is very, it's like opening up your chest and someone looking at your heart. You're really putting yourself in a vulnerable state. But the writers group was just incredibly helpful with helping me develop my craft. And with the group, I wrote my first novel, The Long Flight Home. It took me about 3 years to write it. And I wrote a query letter, and I sent it out to agents. And because I'd written one novel but prior to the writers group, and I had sent it out to just to some agents, and you hear crickets. You don't get any feedback or anything back. And this was quite different. I received an overwhelming response from agents wanting to request a manuscript and represent me. And I signed it with Trident Media Group. Mark Gottlieb is my agent in New York, and sold the manuscript in 45 days to Kensington Publishing. And since then, as Marilyn mentioned, it's been published in about 10 languages. So very honored and grateful. Never thought it would happen. You spend all those years, dreaming of something, and finally it happens like super fast. It's sort of strange. So very grateful and happy that it happened. But that's a little bit about me and my long road to becoming a published author. My latest book is Churchill's Secret Messenger. This was it's my second novel, and I became intrigued with a number of things during my research for my first book that I sort of tabled and wanted to come back to write a story about. There's really four things that inspired me to write the book. But before I get this, many of you probably haven't read the book. It's a historical fiction novel set in World War II, and it's based on really two stories. One story is about Rose Teasdale, and she's a typist working in Winston Churchill's underground war rooms in the Treasury building in London. And she catches the attention of Winston Churchill, and she's recruited for his secret army and is parachuted into German-occupied France to become a spy. And it's also the story of Lazare Aron. He is a Jewish French resistance fighter in Paris and he is someone that will go to any length to liberate his country from Nazi tyranny. So that's a little bit about what the story is about. But four things inspired me to write it. One was I came across the stories of the courageous SOE agents, female SOE agents of the SOE is Special Operations Executive, and it was British. It was Churchill's spy network during World War II. And 39 of the 470 SOE spies in German-occupied France were women. And many of these women were captured, tortured, and killed. And I read the personal stories of these women, and I was just moved by what they did. Many of the women had children at home, and they really sacrificed everything in order to, free the world and create a better world for their families. So I was really moved by their personal stories. Also, the Veldiv Roundup in Paris in 1942. And that was in German-occupied France in 1942. The French police, acting on behalf of the German government, rounded up and arrested 13,000 Parisian Jews, including 4,000 children. And they were taken to the Velodrome de Hiver, which was an indoor bicycle racing track, where they endured two days of excruciating heat, no food and water, and no sanitary facilities. And then they were placed on rail cattle cars and sent to Auschwitz for their mass murder. It was heart-wrenching to learn about the persecution of Jewish families in Paris and what had happened with the Veldiv Roundup, and it was something I felt that I needed to write about. Also, the Churchill Secret Messenger is filled with real life. I love including real events in the story, and one of the events included in the story is the fall of the Physicians Network in Paris. And Physician Network was a spy network, British spy network, that was infiltrated by Nazi intelligence in 1943, and essentially it collapsed, and all of the spies were arrested, including about 100 French resistance also. And many of these people were sent to concentration camps and didn't survive. So I thought that was something that I didn't know much about, and I wanted to include in the book. And it also gave me a way to give the reader a view of what was happening in Paris at this time in history. And lastly, the fourth thing that I was very intrigued about and I wanted to weave into the tale was Operation Jericho. And Operation Jericho was a real bombing mission. It was an RAF, Royal Air Force bombing mission on a French prison in February 1944, I believe. And the reason it was a bombing mission on a prison was there were over 100 French resistance that were scheduled to be shot. And they bombed the prison in just a desperate attempt to free some of the prisoners, which they did. Some prisoners were freed from this bombing raid. And to this day, historians do not know who gave the order to bomb this prison, or who was the mastermind behind planning the mission. And in Churchill Secret Messenger, I come up with my own version of how this plan was masterminded and devised. So those were really the four things that inspired me to write the story. Research, as I mentioned, I absolutely love research. As I mentioned, 39 of the 470 SOE agents were female, and there were really 3 agents that really captivated me and really helped me develop Rose Teasdale's character for the book. She is a fictional character, but she is surrounded by many real life characters in the story. One person is Pearl Withington, and she was an SOE agent in I believe in Bordeaux, and she posed as a traveling cosmetic saleswoman and to travel around German-occupied France. And I used that, her as inspiration for Rose Teasdale and her cover story. Nancy Wake, many of you, if anybody knows Nancy Wake, she was an SOE agent that was very courageous, very bold, cunning. She was known for traveling on a bicycle about 300 kilometers through German-occupied France, going through German roadblocks and talking her way through these roadblocks in order to get a wireless radio and bring it back to her network. And she's quoted in many interviews, and she's since passed, but she's quoted in many interviews saying that of all the things she did during the war, traveling on that bicycle 300 kilometers through these German roadblocks was the toughest thing she's ever had to do. So I had to include some of her inspiration for the book. And Odette Sanson, she was an agent that was captured and sent to Ravensbrück concentration camp, which is also included in the book. And her stories of what she went through at Ravensbrück inspired me to help create some of these agents were experiencing under captivity. Churchill, since the book has the name Churchill, I have to talk a little bit about Churchill. I've always believed that Churchill was, the right leader at the right time to help the Allies, win victory over Nazism and to free the world. And I always viewed him as a very staunch, confident leader. But what I learned during some of my research, there was a whole different side of Churchill that I didn't know. I had watched a video, and I encourage anybody to write this name down. Her name is Joy Hunter. She was a typist for Churchill's war room, and watched this interview of her, and she spoke of Churchill as being this humorous, kind-hearted, someone that went out of his way to talk with the typists and the group. And some of the stories that she's told, I just couldn't believe it. It wasn't the Churchill that I knew. And I wanted to show a different side of Churchill. And as I dug in, I learned more about Churchill's personal life, his estate, Chartwell, where he had a passion for animals, and his beloved goldfish that he loved to feed on his pond. He loved painting. And these are some of the things that I wanted to capture in the story as a whole different side of Winston Churchill that many people, including myself, prior to my research, didn't know about. Ravensbrück was really something that I didn't know much about. The Ravensbrück concentration camp is a notorious concentration camp for women, and not a whole lot was written about it earlier in history, simply because when the concentration camps were liberated, Ravensbrück was liberated by the Soviet Red Army, and much of what took place fell behind, into the Soviet Union. And we in the West, didn't learn a whole lot about it until really the last decade or so. There's a terrific book that was instrumental to me. It was by Sarah Helm. It's called Ravensbrück. And she took time to trace a lot of the women that were there and told personal stories about what took place. And her book was just incredibly helpful for creating scenes that take place at Ravensbrück concentration camp. Lastly, I'll mention, I'm always intrigued with historical figures, and I just love reading about people in history. And the book includes many real historical people, of course, Winston Churchill, but Captain Jepson, he was a recruiter for the SOE, the Special Operations Executive. Prior to being a recruiter for the SOE, he was a fiction writer, which intrigued me. I thought that was a pretty interesting profession to be before you become a recruiter for spies. Also, Major Maxwell. He was an arms instructor for the SOE. He's in the book. Joseph Kiefer. He was head of the SD, the Nazi intelligence in Paris during this time. The book is in the book, and also Dominique Ponchadaire, a French resistance network operator. So I tried to surround these characters with many real life characters. And I think it's worth mentioning Captain Jepson a little bit. Captain Jepson, he's been quoted in a number of articles as saying that he believed that women were far more better spies than men. And he believed that women were better better at lonely courage, and I think his term was lonely courage, than men. And at the time, when they were sending spies into German-occupied France, many of the men were very easily spotted because all the French young French men were taken away to concentration camps. So, spies were very easily spotted, and women spies became much more important. And Captain Jepson definitely recognized this, and he went out his way to talk highly about the SOE agents that served. So with that, I'd love to open up for questions. That's a little bit about the book, myself, and how I researched the story. But I'd love to hear what's on your mind or any questions you have, anything from publishing to writing and or the book. So,
Thank you, Alan. What a great talk. Really appreciate it. I'm very interested in terms of plot development and your kind of process. Maybe I don't know if you come across this Christopher Booker idea that there's 7 basic stories, that every story that we tell is one of these 7 stories.
yes.
And they all stories sort of have that conflict and resolution. And I guess I'm asking in terms of when you're thinking out in front of a novel in front of you, do you think big picture, conflict resolution, what sort of story? And then how do you break that down into chapters? Are you doing a sort of the same similar thing in a chapter that you are doing in a book in a sort of small bit?
That's a great question. I really appreciate you bringing that up, because I think that a lot of writers struggle with that. For me, and I think for me, what works, I think everyone has a different process. Usually what captivates me is something gets in my head and I can't get it out. And it's usually an event. For example, for The Long Flight Home, what inspired me to write that, my debut novel, was I came across a newspaper article that was written in 2012 about a person a man that was renovating his chimney in Surrey, England, and discovered a war pigeon. And attached to the pigeon's leg was a coded message from World War II that to this day has not been decoded by code breakers around the world, including curators at Bletchley Park and Britain's GCHQ. And I couldn't get that out of my head. What's on that message? What was written on that message? And that was the inspiration for me to write that book. So for me, the process usually starts with the end in mind. And same thing with Churchill's Secret Messenger. I had sort of the end in mind before I started the beginning of the book, which is sort of backwards, but it just sort of works for me. So I usually think about that final resolution before I start. And I know that's very strange. You may not hear that very much, but that seems to work for me. As far as process, I'm probably a blend between a structured writer and someone that is more of an organic writer. And structured is someone that would really put out a plot, and a very detailed plot about, the beginning, the conflict resolution, all these phases of a story. And I do some of that. I do write I write a short synopsis for each of my stories and character development. But I like not to be too structured. And I hope, and the reason is I love to be able to have some creativity and have some fun along the way. I know where I'm going, but I like to have some variations. And if something pops in my head, this might be very creative. It helps me, hopefully, to keep the reader guessing as what's going to happen next and wanting to read more. So that's what sort of works for me. But process is, I appreciate you bringing it up, because that's such an important topic, for anyone that aspires to write. Is like, how do I go about this? And I think there's lots of different ways, and what it comes down to is finding the way that works best for you.
I'm a real fan of the TV series, The French Village. I don't know if you've seen that. It's out of Europe. It's about the French village during the Second World War. And I was wondering if you've seen that and how that represented what it was like in France for that extended period of time, almost 5 years under Nazi occupation.
That's
in your research of this book.
I wish I just wrote down French Village, because I have not seen it. I'm definitely going to watch it. As for the French Village, as far as trying to find out what it was like, I read lots of different articles, books on understanding what life was like. Anything from what the rationing was like, what the mood was like, what it was like, were you permitted to ride a bicycle, all these different things, what it was like to go through a ration line. So I try to find out as much as I could about the life for the everyday Parisians and what they struggled. And particularly for this, it was Lazare Aran is a French resistance fighter, and I wanted to find out what it was like for the French resistance, and everyday citizens, the Parisians, what they were struggling with under Nazi occupation. But unfortunately, I haven't seen that show, but I have written it down and I'm going to watch it.
I enjoyed your talk very much, Alan. My question is, how long does it take from when you start writing the book until you're done? And what process do you have with your editors? And do you get frustrated with them messing with your creativity, or do they make you a better writer, or both?
Thank you. I appreciate the comment. My first book, because I wasn't under contract, didn't have an agent or a publisher. It took me about 3 years to write the first book. Now, Churchill's Secret Messenger, I wrote this in a year. My next book will be released in March 29th. And it's called A Light Beyond the Trenches. That'll be out March 29th. And then I'm currently writing my fourth book right now. I'm on target. I'm doing a book a year. So that's my timeline now. And that's the timeline that I've agreed with my publisher. For historical fiction, it usually takes 12 months to 18 months. And that's based on what my editor and my agent recommend for historical fiction. It usually takes a little bit longer for historical fiction simply because of the research. But now I'm on target for about a book a year, which keeps me pretty busy. I treat it like a 9-to-5 job. I'm writing every day and sometimes long hours. So that's my timeline. As far as frustration, I've been very fortunate. My agent doesn't get involved in the creative process. He's more about getting my book, with the right publisher, and the right audience. And my editor has been wonderful. I've been very lucky to. I'm with Kensington Publishing. My editor is John Sconamilio. He's been with the publisher about 30 years. He's the chief editor at Kensington, and I'm honored that he has taken me on as under his wing, and I'm working with him. And he's very open. He's very fostering. He's really good about bringing out things maybe that I missed in a manuscript. For my last two projects, actually last three projects, he has, when he reads the manuscript, he typically will first tell me, look, hey, write another chapter on this, write more here, bring more emotion here. He'll ask me to fill in. So actually, he has not taken away like writing that I have done. He's actually encouraged me to write more. And I have to thank him. If you get a chance to read the book, there's a chapter about Winston Churchill in a reunion toward the end of this book, and he encouraged me to write it. So it would not have been in the book if it wasn't for my editor. So I'm deeply grateful for his wisdom and guidance. So I've been very lucky. The editing process, I will mention, there's really three big phases for editing process. One is I turn my manuscript into my editor, and John will read it for the very first time and then give me his thoughts on, what works and character development, very high level, review of the manuscript. Then I'll go back and I'll make some changes, take a couple months to make some changes to the manuscript, send it in, and then we do copy edits, which is basically line edits of the manuscript. And there's a copy editor at Kensington, her name's Carly. She does an absolute phenomenal job of helping polish the manuscript. And then thirdly, I will receive a printed copy of the book, which is actually just loose paper of pages of the book. And it's called page edits or page proofs. And it's basically the book, and it's my last chance to look at it for any minor changes or errors in the book. So it's really a three-phase process, and my experience with editing has been one that's very good. I view myself as a storyteller, and I greatly appreciate anyone's expertise with the English language to help improve my punctuation.
Since I'm doing the video, I have to come back here to get on camera. Just can you talk about the different sources you go to research? And do you actually get original sources as well as, doing various texts and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I lots of different resources. For Churchill Secret Messenger, I was fortunate to be able to visit France. My wife and I we took a trip, and we were in Paris. Before the book was published, we got a chance to visit the catacombs. Catacombs are take place in the book, and different streets and locations where the spies hung out. So I was able to get a view of what it feels like, what it smells like, all these different things. Resources, I try to use all different resources. Certainly books. I read tons of books. When I'm embarking on a project, I will go through and get books on different angles. Like for Churchill Secret Messenger, I got a number of different books on the Special Operations Executive, the French Resistance, Sarah Helm's novel that I mentioned, or book that I mentioned about Ravensbrück. And I'll read all those novels to be able to get an understanding of what that world's like. And then I augment that with specific research, like certain individuals or historical figures. I didn't get a chance to visit Churchill's war rooms, but in the days of the internet, I was able to take a virtual tour and walk through Churchill's war rooms, underground war rooms, which was really fabulous to go through and look at all the different rooms and what's on the desks, and so there's lots of different things. I think I can't imagine what it would have been like before lots of the technology that we have on researching books. We have such ease of accessing information. It's just incredible. So I use tons of different sources. I'm also a very visual person, so I've watched some movies. There's a great movie. It was actually published by the opera. Actually, the British government published just after the war, and it was a training. It basically disclosed all their training and how they approached the SOE. It was published in 1945. I think it's called, I can't remember the name of it offhand, but incredible movie. It was a really great training film where I could see what the training was like for the SOE. So I use just about every angle, from books, articles, video, you name it. So I don't think there's one source I just like to use them all.
With the long flight home, emotionally, when you're wrapping up the book and then you start looking for and hoping for a publisher and you finally sign a contract, I'm sure it's a roller coaster ride, but at the end, did you light up a Churchill size cigar?
That would have been good. I can't remember what I did. It's funny. I will say that actually, what I remember of the news that I got was, I'll tell a story that how I found out. I remember sending my manuscript out and got a number of agents requested it. Mark Gottlieb was my dream agent with Trident Media Group. And my wife and I were taking our dog for a walk. I think it was Oak Hill Trailhead. We were out walking in Oak Hill. And I remember getting a text from Mark. It was on a Sunday afternoon. Says, I love the book because give me a call. I like to discuss representation. And I was floored after all those years of, practicing writing, dreaming about writing, getting this text. And in my hand, I have my phone and my text from an agent wanting to talk representation. And in my other hand, I have a doggy pile of dog droppings from my dog. So I wish it would have been a cigar. That would have been a better fitting, but that's actually what I had in my hand, a phone and my dog's droppings. I was carrying back to the garbage can. So, but that was my story of my first news of finding out that I was going to be represented. So, other questions?
Here's Marilyn.
I have a couple. You were writing for magazines before you were actually published. Is that true?
Yes, it was a few fiction magazines and also business magazines. I was writing articles for work.
How long were you doing that?
I would say about 10 years. I was getting, I would dabble with it, work on getting things published with, it was really business journals and trade magazines, about 10 years.
Okay, secondly, you're writing in the age of the internet. What platforms are you on and how much self-promotion is required to keep this job of yours moving forward?
Thank you, bro. That's a really great question because it's not the most comfortable thing for me. I was never on social media. And when I first got represented and my book was coming out, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to get a Facebook page. I have to get Twitter. I got to get Instagram and all these things. And I have a Facebook page. I'm not on Facebook a whole lot on my personal page, but I do keep up with I have an author page where I give updates about what's going on with the book and events and things like that. It's time consuming. It's very time consuming to, just try to feel like you have to stay out there and, do these posts and stay active with social media because it's part of the world today. It's the way many of us connect and learn about things. So I've tried to embrace it. I'm not an expert at social media by any means. We're doing it now, and it's been wonderful. If there's one good thing that's come from the pandemic is that we've broadened our horizons on being able to connect with people that are much farther away than we were before. I've been doing events with people across the country that I probably wouldn't have gotten the chance to do. And so it's really, in some ways, it's helped us connect to a broader audience. But social media is something I do, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'm not on there posting every day. I try to post periodically and stay engaged. But it's been really nice. Instagram seems to be the one for foreign languages. I get lots of Instagram posts of people in different countries posting the long flight home in different languages. It's sort of really very humbling, but I never thought that would happen. But people send me a picture of the book, and I'll send it around and put it on my story, and it's very flattering and honoring to have happen.
Alan, we thank you so much for your time today. What a great talk and so much great information. Oh, can't wait to read the book.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you so much. It's an honor to be here, and I really appreciate Marilyn inviting me and the group having me in this morning. So best wishes to your group. And
thank you so much. What is this? Oh, it's the quote. Oh, I have the quote. We got the joke left. Yeah. All right. So we have the Rotobuck. I can't remember how to do this here. Our speaker typically is the picker, but that's not going to happen. So Marilyn, I guess it's you.
Yeah, I try. Let's see if I pick my own.
All right, so the number is last four digits 6326. 6326. No, nobody has 6326. So it goes to the oh, come on. All right. Payout is $10. Donating to the Holy Trinity Lunch Club. Is that what I heard? Maybe. You're going to donate it. All right. You got to pick your all right, Tucker, you got to have something taller. Make him pick because he'll cheat on me. One of those is yours. Top. Oh, I'm sorry. There, one comes out. I think. Okay, with all that, Patrick, are you still up there? You are. Patrick, do you know what the janitor said when he leapt from the closet? Supplies! Have a good day.
Very good, Father Joe.